What if I told you one of Errol Flynn's most important movies was not a swashbuckler at all, but a full-color western that helped prove he could trade a sword for a six-shooter and still look like a legend? What if this movie was Warner Brothers' big attempt to make a western feel as rich, prestigious, and spectacular as their costume adventures? And it worked so well that it became one of the studio's biggest hits of the year? According to the American Film Institute, this was a major Warner production with Michael Curtiz directing, Hal B. Wallace producing, Robert Buckner writing, Saul Polito shooting, George Amy editing, and Max Steiner scoring it. And stay with me, because one of the biggest surprises has less to do with the gunfights than with the way this film helped change what a Western could look like in 1939. These are the top 20 weird facts about Dodge City. Number 20. This was Errol Flynn's first Western. That alone makes the movie a turning point. By 1939, Errol Flynn was already one of Warner Brothers' biggest stars. Audiences knew him from adventure pictures, romantic hero roles, and elegant action. But Dodge City was his first Western. That was not a small gamble, because Flynn was not coming into this movie as an unknown cowboy star trying to work his way up. He came in already carrying star expectations. And the question was simple. Could he bring the same charisma, speed, and authority to the frontier that he brought to a swashbuckler? The answer turned out to be yes. And once the movie worked, it opened a whole new lane in his career. Number 19. Warner Brothers was going big, and it wanted everyone to know it. This was not a modest genre picture tossed into theaters between bigger releases. Warner Brothers made Dodge City as a major production, directed by Michael Curtiz, produced by Hal B. Wallace, written by Robert Buckner, shot by Saul Polito, edited by George Amy, and scored by Max Steiner. In other words, this was top-tier Warner talent all over the frame. You could feel that ambition right away. The movie is larger, cleaner, more confident. It does not feel like a quick Western programmer. It feels like Warner Brothers wanted to show that the Western could be every bit as grand as the kind of prestige picture they were already famous for making. And 1939 was exactly the year to try it. Number 18. 1939 was a huge year for Westerns, and Dodge City was Warner's big play. This part matters because context helps explain confidence. According to Turner Classic Movies, 1939 was a gold rush year for major Westerns, with titles like Stagecoach, Destry Rides Again, and Union Pacific helping bring the genre back in a big way. Warner wanted a glossy, star-driven entry of its own, and Dodge City was that play. That gives the movie a different kind of energy. It is not just trying to tell a frontier story. It is trying to plant a flag. And once you understand that, the next fact makes even more sense. Because Warner did not just want a Western. It wanted a Western that looked expensive. Number 17. This was a full Technicolor Western, and that changed the feel of everything. One of the biggest reasons Dodge City feels so rich is simple. It was shot in 3 full-strip Technicolor. That gave the film a different presence from the start. Instead of dusty monochrome frontier grit, you get pageantry. Bright costumes, big skies, crowds, railroad action, saloon interiors. All of it feels bigger, brighter, and more event-sized. That is not just visual decoration, it is a statement. The movie is telling you, almost immediately, that this is not a cheap Western. This is a Western dressed like a studio event. And when you pair that look with Michael Curtiz, the whole thing starts to strut. Number 16. Michael Curtiz helped turn the Western into prestige entertainment. Michael Curtiz was not some anonymous workman director here. He was one of Warner Brothers' great big picture directors. And that matters because Curtiz knew how to move a large studio film with speed and authority. Britannica specifically calls Dodge City one of Curtiz's major 1939 accomplishments. That is a huge reason the movie still plays so well. It does not drag, it surges. It knows how to stage crowds, motion, danger, and star entrances. Curtiz gives the movie shape and momentum. And because he had already proved himself in other major Western productions, Dodge City ends up feeling less like a genre experiment and more like the studio knew exactly whose hand to trust. That same confidence extends to the producer too. Because Hal Wallace was not just a name in the credits. He was one of the people helping define what a major Warner film even looked like. Number 15. Hal B. Wallace and Robert Buckner helped give the movie its clean drive. Producer Hal B. Wallace and writer Robert Buckner are a big part of why the film feels so solid. Buckner's screenplay gives the movie a very clean engine. A lawless town, a dangerous villain, a reluctant hero, and a steady march toward order, discipline, and showdown. That sounds simple, but simple is not easy. The story works because it never loses the line. It always knows where the conflict is, it always knows who needs to be stopped, and it always knows how to keep Flynn moving toward the badge without making it feel forced. That kind of clarity is one reason the movie holds together so well, and it gets stronger because Flynn is not carrying it alone. This was already a proven screen team by then. Number 14. Flynn and Olivia de Havilland were already a trusted screen pairing. By the time Dodge City arrived, Errol Flynn and Olivia de Havilland were already one of old Hollywood's most reliable romantic adventure pairings. That gave Warner Brothers a built-in advantage. Audiences already knew this pairing worked, and that matters because a movie like this needs more than action. It needs warmth, it needs spark, it needs a center that makes the frontier myth feel emotionally lived in. Flynn and de Havilland helped provide that. But there is another presence in this movie who gives it a different kind of glamour, and that is part of what makes the cast feel so stacked. Number 13. Ann Sheridan helps give the movie extra fire. Ann Sheridan is one of the reasons Dodge City feels richer than the simple hero versus villain western. Her presence gives the film extra flavor, extra electricity, and a little more adult edge. She is not just decorative. She helps widen the movie's emotional and social world. And more than that, she gives the picture a little extra heat, the kind that keeps a polished western from feeling too clean. That matters in a film like this, because if the movie were only about Wade Hatton cleaning up the town, it could have become mechanical. Instead, the supporting cast gives it layers, different energies, different textures, different kinds of danger. And nowhere is that danger clearer than in the men Flynn had to face, because a western this polished still needs somebody to hate. Number 12. Bruce Cabot and the supporting cast give the town real threat. Bruce Cabot's Jeff Surratt is crucial. He gives the film a villain strong enough to carry all that Technicolor spectacle and still make the conflict feel personal. And with actors like Victor Jory, Alan Hale, and Henry Travers around the leads, the town itself starts to feel like a social machine instead of just a backup. That is one reason Dodge City works. It does not feel empty. It feels populated. It feels pressurized. It feels like a town worth saving, and dangerous enough to resist being saved. And once the town feels real, the action matters more. That becomes especially obvious in the railroad material, because the movie does not just open, it charges. Number 11. The train material is one of the movie's great visual engines. The railroad scenes are not just background flavor. They are one of the big reasons the movie feels alive. The railroad filming was done on the Sierra Railroad in Jamestown, California, and that line is now preserved as Railtown 1897 State Historic Park. So when you watch those train scenes, you're looking at a place that still survives and is still remembered as part of movie history. That is one of the coolest things about the movie. Parts of its world are not just lost to old Hollywood history. You can still trace them. And that train material became one of the film's signature visual elements. The early rail and stagecoach action helps announce that this will be a movie of movement, scale, and forward drive. That is a smart choice, because trains do not just add motion, they add force. They connect the frontier to modernity. They add velocity, and they make the whole film feel like a western about a country in motion, not just a town in trouble. In fact, from the first train and stagecoach material, the movie feels like it is trying to outrun the ordinary western. And the railroad was not the only real place helping sell the scale. The landscape mattered too. Number 10. You can still trace parts of this movie's frontier world today. One of the nicest things about Dodge City is that parts of its visual world are still traceable. According to the American Film Institute, the movie was filmed on location at Sherwood Lake, California, and near Victorville, California. AFI also notes that some modern sources point to additional desert-style filming, possibly including Arizona. That is classic studio-era movie magic with a nice twist. You are not just watching an invented frontier. You are watching a frontier built out of real places that, in some cases, still exist. Not every exact camera position is marked on the ground today, but the surviving railroad location is especially clear because Railtown 1897 is actively preserved and openly presented as a filming site. That is one of the pleasures of old Hollywood. You're not just watching a place, you are watching a place be invented. And once all that visual machinery is working, one more major element seals the mood: the music. Number 9. Max Steiner's score helps make the movie feel grander than a standard Western. A movie like this does not feel heroic by accident. A huge part of that comes from Max Steiner. His score helps elevate Dodge City from frontier melodrama into something larger and more mythic. That matters because the movie is always trying to be more than rough action. It wants pageantry, emotion, sweep, a sense that this Western belongs on the same shelf as Warner's bigger prestige pictures. And once music, Technicolor, and Curtiz all start working together, the result is hard to miss. This is not a routine Western. It is the Western going upscale. And once that happens, the whole picture starts to feel bigger than its plot. Number 8. Dodge City helped prove the Western could be a prestige studio event. This is one of the movie's biggest historical strengths. The film sits right inside the moment when Westerns were becoming more important, more expensive, and more central to studio prestige. That is huge, because it means the movie is doing two jobs at once. It is entertaining audiences with a classic frontier cleanup story, and it is also helping show Hollywood that the Western can carry real star power, real money, and real spectacle. That makes its success even more important. And that success was real. Very real. Number 7. The gamble worked. This became one of Warner Brothers' biggest hits of 1939. According to reported studio earnings summarized in film references, Dodge City earned about $1.688 million in the United States and $844,000 overseas, making it one of Warner Brothers' biggest hits of 1939. That is a tremendous payoff, because now the studio had proof. Errol Flynn could carry a Western. Technicolor could make the Western feel event-sized. And audiences would absolutely show up for this kind of frontier spectacle. That changed the conversation. It meant Dodge City was not just a success, it was evidence. And once Flynn had that evidence behind him, more frontier and Western-style roles followed. Number 6. This movie opened a new frontier in Flynn's career. After Dodge City, Flynn did not just wander back to costume adventure and forget the West existed. This movie opened a lane. That matters because it changes how you watch the film. It is not just Flynn trying something new. It is Flynn discovering he can bring his star qualities, speed, authority, swagger, moral force, into a Western setting and still feel completely believable. That is a big career turn. Britannica's Flynn biography places Dodge City alongside later frontier films like Santa Fe Trail and They Died with Their Boots On, which shows this was not a one-off experiment. And the studio knew it was onto something. You can tell from how they sold the movie. Number 5. Warner Brothers turned the premiere into a huge publicity spectacle. The world premiere was held in Dodge City, Kansas, and the studio made a real event out of it. Reports describe Warner Brothers sending a special train carrying the stars and journalists to the event, and the turnout in Dodge City itself was enormous. That is very old Hollywood. The studio did not just release the movie, it staged it. It turned the title into a public happening. It made the town and the film reflect each other. And one of the closest things to Dodge City gossip is that the premiere became almost bigger than the movie itself. A special train, a massive turnout, and years of retelling that turned the opening into its own piece of Western legend. That kind of promotion tells you how seriously they were taking the picture. And it also shows something else. Warner believed this was not just a Western. It was a headline. That kind of coincidence tends to show up only when a studio thinks it has the goods. And in this case, it did. Number 4. The story's historical flavor helped the myth feel bigger. Wade Hatten is a fictional hero, but the film places him inside a recognizable Western world that includes Colonel Grenville M. Dodge, a real railroad builder and Union general. That gives the story just enough historical texture to make the myth feel grounded without losing its studio-era sweep. That is smart storytelling. Because the movie is not trying to be a documentary. It is trying to feel bigger than a simple made-up tale. So it borrows the outline of real frontier expansion, railroads, town building, lawlessness, civic order, and then drops Flynn's star myth right into the middle of it. That blend is one reason the movie works so well. It feels historical enough to matter, and mythic enough to excite. Number 3. This movie feels big because so many of its elements lock together. One of the best things about Dodge City is that it does not lean on just one strength. The cast works, the color works, the score works, the locations work, the train material works, the town cleanup story works, and Curtiz keeps the whole thing moving. And that is why the movie feels bigger than the sum of its parts. A lot of Westerns have one memorable thing. This one has a whole system of memorable things. And when a film gets that many pieces right at once, it starts to feel inevitable. Not just popular, definitive. Number 2. Dodge City helped turn the Western into something more glamorous, expensive, and studio powerful. This is the broader legacy point. The film sits right in the moment when Westerns were going big. That means it did more than entertain 1939 audiences. It helped show what the Western could become when a major studio threw full prestige machinery behind it. That is one reason it still matters. Not just because Flynn is good, not just because it made money, but because it helped enlarge the genre. And that brings us to the final fact. Number 1. This wasn't just Errol Flynn in a Western, it was a moment when the Western got bigger. That is what makes Dodge City so interesting. It is a first Western for Flynn, a major Warner Brothers hit, a Technicolor event, a Michael Curtiz picture, a Hal Wallace production, a frontier myth staged with the confidence of a prestige studio epic. And because all of those things converged at once, the movie lasted. Not just as a hit, but as a marker. A sign that the Western could be lush, glamorous, sweeping, and still crowd-pleasing. That is why Dodge City matters. It did not just ride into theaters as another Western. It arrived like a studio proving the frontier could be epic. And that is what makes Dodge City such a fascinating Errol Flynn movie. It is a star transition, a studio statement, a Western spectacle, and one of the movies that helped prove the frontier could be just as grand as the swashbuckler. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments which Errol Flynn film I should cover next. And after this one, be sure to watch The Adventures of Robin Hood next. Because if you want to see Flynn at his brightest, most iconic, and most purely joyful, that is still the perfect next stop. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.